Welcome to Future Shop. I'm here with Wendy Liebman, founder, CEO, and chief shopper.
I love it. I love to be introduced. Drum roll. So all of you have already got it, right? You already figured out I'm here with my playmate, Justin Honeman, my Amazon Web Service guru of all things consumer products, food and beverage. That's part of consumer restaurants and something. Did they give you anything else
Retail
since we last
and
got retail?
retail.
Oh my God. I forgot that. Yes, exactly. How could I forget that?
Yeah, I
Thank
don't
you
have
for
that on today.
introducing me. No, but thank you for introducing me, dear Justin. I love that. Yeah, drum roll. Friday afternoon, Halloween, everybody. For those of you who we're recording this on Halloween. Today I'm wearing my graffiti top just to pretend I'm a downtown girl, which I am. Justin is wearing his white shirt if you're listening and not watching.
I
But he
know.
does have a fabulous A behind him saying A is for
Woo!
absolutely fabulous and excellent. So well done. So
It's my
I love
neon,
doing
my
this.
new custom neon. I mean,
I know, I see
crazy.
it. I see it. I'll have a custom W and then we'll be wah, or. Anyway, dear child, good to see you. It's been a couple of months. You've been
I
busy.
know.
I've been busy. Yeah, I always appreciate our catch up. There's so much going on in our world of retail and technology and consumer goods and restaurants and Halloween and candy and things and retail.
Crazy. That's right.
Yeah. So, I wanted to talk to you about a number of things. One is what's on everybody's minds these days, because it's spooky enough on Halloween, but there are many other things. You have a wonderful share group and you had your
That's right.
big dinner, and I sadly was sailing down the Rhine, so I could not join you. But I'm sure between that and all your client work that, you've been hearing the rumblings of how people are feeling as we move quickly through fourth quarter and into first quarter. So I thought we'd have that chat, including, where is the AI conversation going and NRF and 2026. And we have so much. So how about we begin there? What are you
Sure.
hearing from your share groups and clients, all those things that aren't, confidential?
Yeah. So for those that are listening and maybe listening to this episode in the future, we're in Q4 of 2025. And for retail, you know what that means. I mean, everyone's eagerly anticipating holiday. And so, I mean, that's certainly top of mind with just about every retailer we work with, wanting to make sure they have inventory right, that they're, ready to engage and build top of funnel loyalty
Mm-hmm.
engagement with customers, are not having sourcing issues around product. At this point, it's kind of too late. In fact, you're already into next year probably on some inventory. And then I'd say also just there's a continued interest, and like I'll say on the back office side with cross industry, about getting our data better and getting better reporting and better insights. I think that's been a really interesting theme the last couple of weeks, as it goes with the AI conversation. But while AI, I think, is one thing we'll talk a lot about today,
Mm-hmm.
there's the run the business part of the business. And so,
Mm-hmm.
supply chain operations, allocation, planning, execution, in-store, employee engagement, hiring seasonal workers, all those
Mm-hmm.
things are top of
Yeah.
mind right now going into
Yeah.
Q4.
Yeah. And do you have a sense that, the big T word, tariffs have actually impacted what holiday will look like for a lot of retailers, or have they just, that was already done, buying was done, 3, 6, 9 months ago, and so they've been able to accommodate all of that in terms of both supply chain and pricing?
I'm not an expert on the tariff policies. I mean, quite frankly, that changes so regularly between
Right.
countries, and it's difficult, I think, for me. I wouldn't have a real good perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
What I can say is you have a number of factors, though, playing in, not just that one, but you have interest rates coming down, for example, in the US market. You
Mm-hmm.
have the consumer, which, if you look at the reports, the numbers are expected to be a good holiday, and at the same time, a value conscious consumer. So, certainly be thinking about that. And also the high end of retail is doing really
Mm-hmm.
well. So there's kind of this
Yeah.
dichotomy of two ends
Yeah.
of the spectrum. But from a consumer goods perspective, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
certainly upstream input costs are in the kind of the the margin compression there within the CPG
Mhm.
brands is one thing that's top of mind. And then how do you, or what do you pass to the retailer? And then what do they pass to the shopper? I mean, there's a tension in that space across the industry.
It's certainly that challenge as we move forward. I did hear one of, in doing my own sort of, as I've been wandering around the world and country, that on the one hand, people just saying, listen, we cannot be devoting so much time every week, every day to, what the what ifs. We've got to get off and run the
Right.
business. So we've got to make some assumptions and move forward. Otherwise, all we'll be doing is sitting there with our heads in the, supply chain
Yeah,
computer. So yeah, there's a
no doubt.
pragmatism I think that's coming at least on the retailer side. I think hopefully we're moving forward on the
Yeah,
manufacturer side as well. Yeah.
yeah. I tell my customers too, like, okay, if well, you think look at the supply chain, you can walk all the way back to COVID and see all the challenges, and then there's the barge from the canal, and then
Hmm.
like political unrest in other countries. Like I, I think if you operate with the mindset of there's always going to be something else
Yeah.
coming, like how do we build for resilience? How do we build for flexibility? How do we build for the scale or the options so we don't disrupt the business? That's the way to think about it versus worrying about one thing or something different. I mean, no one a year ago was talking about agentic commerce, and here
Uh-huh.
this year, agentic is probably the most used word in a lot of the meetings that I'm in these days. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I also think to your point, from a consumer shopper perspective, the shopper is in the same point. They're now saying, okay, chaos, it's chaos. It's been chaos now for 10 years, 5 years, 10 years. It ramps up. I've got to figure out a game plan and just keep going. Now, we've got other issues. It's not, maybe we're not talking about inflation now. Maybe we're talking about, will I have a job? Will I have healthcare? Will I have SNAP
right.
benefits? All of those things, which, for some people doesn't leave them with many operating options personally. But I think it's a similar, we're seeing that in all our How America Shops work that, shoppers are like, I get it. I've been here. I got to take control myself. I cannot depend on the ebbs and flows of, the market, so to speak. And so I think there is that sense of getting on with it and, and assuming that the chaos will continue in whatever form.
Yeah,
So I think we're
yeah,
seeing a
and
lot
brands
of
and
that pragmatism. Yeah.
yeah, brands on the retail and the restaurants, and you talked about the places I cover in the CPG side there's a lot of additional interest now in better data, on better signals, right? And then what to do with that. And now you have environments where multiple signals can be sensed and realized and recognized and acted on in a much more flexible way than ever before. That's interesting, especially to the medium to big size companies have like some of the investment dollars to put around something like that.
Yeah. Well, I must say, and that's to the AI agentic or, just large large data models, is that whole conversation is like, okay, we're commercially, I mean, not from a shopper standpoint perhaps, but commercially, everybody we talk to has, got their own use cases of what they're doing. I mean, we were at a
That's right.
retailer doing one of our retail immersions this week, and they were talking about the way they think about creating media, creating advertising for the holidays, creating messaging,
Sure.
social. And a year ago, they would have done one campaign and they would have had 20 people with their hands all over it. Yes, no, that works. And they would have run it. Now, because of AI, they've got four. And they've got four that are going and their same team. They have a small team, but now they've got four going and they'll see how they work and they can see if one works better than the other. And so that is like, we're already into it kind of thing on the, what I
You
would call
know,
the
that
commercial side.
that's interesting. The reason I think that's a great example is oftentimes at, with customers, or we lean into like the large brands that have
Mhm.
AI teams and data teams and reporting teams and data governance teams. But the smaller retailers, the smaller brands, or the organizations with smaller, I'd say, operations, oftentimes are it's assumed that they're not going to be able to keep up. When in fact, I actually
Hmm.
think the tools have become much easier to use and are providing competitive advantage to groups. So in this example, the one you just listed, this is not a job elimination function. This is truly like
No.
better performance and activation and engagement and results with a smaller team. And
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
plussing up their capability.
That's right. And it reminds me, because you and I have some longevity in this business, it reminds me of, the days when all of a sudden we could, excuse the expression, Google it. Um,
Yeah,
and where we used to have to hope somebody still had their university, their college card, so they could get into the library somewhere, still to do their research. And then all of a sudden we got these, search engines that we could use, and it made a company our size much more competitive, even in our own
sure.
data. So I think it's been really interesting. The other thing I'll tell you is, I was sashaying down the Rhine in Europe, and I decided to do my own test of using AI, using one of the AI platforms on multiple levels as I went. Here's a picture, tell me where I am. That was scary. Whoa, because they got it between location and whatever else. Here's a picture, where am I? That was one thing. There were other things like, I've got, 3 hours in this place. Here are my specifications. What should I see? Whatever. It's raining. Where will I go? Kind of thing. That was very interesting. And then, of course, I saw retail because, we'd go on vacation and we look at retail as we do. And I saw new concepts and I was like, wow, that's interesting. Is this 3 stores? Oh, no, look at that. There are 900 stores. Here's all the background. Here's their financials. Here's everything. So it was my use case just for the breadth of what we
Mm,
could do. So anyway, just
sure.
telling you that as
No, I mean,
you're inspiring me
yes.
to do that.
Yes, and you're like, I can't imagine going back, when you do that, and that same thing is happening for shoppers. I mean, I didn't
Yes.
pull the numbers up on my charts here, but
Hmm.
the how you search for product now, as we and
Hmm.
many of you know that are around it's like the last couple of weeks, I feel like this is coming up all the
Hmm.
time. But like the way that you search on, using like an Anthropic or a Perplexity or a ChatGPT to start your search and then like shop, like that's significant. Like it's changing the way that retailers present product, the way that
Yeah.
brands to put product out there. I mean, like this is, and I don't think people realize how much it's going to shift, and because they're still front end of it. But you can take your grocery list and ask it a model to an agent to
Right.
go and find it, drop it in a cart, and put it on Instacart and on its way to your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
And who owns the shopper in that moment? Like
Well,
the
and that's it, right?
agent or
Yeah.
the retailer from which the
Yeah.
product came from, or is it the brand? Like there's all kinds of things. The way you do price pack planning and consumer goods, that old days
Yeah.
for e-commerce is going to change dramatically. So I mean, there's just a lot that goes with that.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I think about so much of that now. And then I think about, and I think you and I discussed it last time, the implications for pricing transparency, right? Because now
Totally.
I'll say, I want the lowest price on, or here are my requirements, and I don't want to spend more than whatever. And all of a sudden, as you suggest, that's what starts to emerge. So one of the things I know you and I have talked about a lot, and we, hope to rustle some feathers at some point, is this discussion about, one, are we here already? If we're here already, is it more of a commercial business efficiency proposition? Where are consumers as shoppers
Mhm.
using all this? Are they already using it? Because, as you've said, this is not new news. This is technology that's been growing, changing over time. So I think that conversation is, what's worth it, or, how are people thinking about it?
I'll throw another angle into this conversation, which we haven't talked about, and that's around talent. This morning, I was part of a panel here in Atlanta with leaders from some of the big companies here in town, and the conversation was really around how talent and talent sourcing, talent development, employee engagement,
Hmm.
and then also like recruiting is how has shifted dramatically in just the last
Hmm.
18 months, 24 months. Not talking about layoffs or mass hiring, but just where and how technology is becoming a bigger part of the operation side as well as the candidate side. And as candidates for jobs are using those tools, right? It's challenging the companies to have to move quickly to know what's real versus what's not,
Right.
and sift through that. I mean, it was like it's like a whole nother way to think about technology. And in our industries, every company is going to have to deal with that. Anybody that's doing hiring is going to have to deal with candidates that may or may not need a resume in the future, quite frankly, or how do you screen candidates and do that? So it's really fascinating.
Yeah, Marianne, who's our VP of Creative Services behind the scenes today, producing this as always, she's hiring a new person, to add to her busy, load of all the things she's responsible for. And, I mean, I just think about how different that hiring practice is, today than it was whatever ago. And just
Yeah.
thinking about that. And then the other thing I think a lot about, the sort of counterpoint to all of this is, okay, given all the efficiency, all the things you talked about, who owns the customer, who owns the consumer as shopper. Now, is there this sort of, swing that also says, as a shopper, also want this, personal connection because I can get even more done without it. And does that say to me, yeah, but I really want to, give somebody a hug? It's usually not right, but you know what I mean. And what does that mean for the physical space? What does it mean for opportunities to build community and engagement and loyalty and all of those things? It opens a door for me to deliver more in-person experiences.
No question. Let's just start with a quick, for those that might be new to the agentic conversation, I'll give a quick kind of, if you want to call it a definition. So when we talk about
Mhm,
agentic AI, this is where you're using systems to do things autonomously, right? That
mhm,
these agents are making decisions and taking actions based on either what has been learned or a set of parameters and whatnot, with minimal human intervention. So that's where you start hearing concern and excitement all at the same
mhm,
time. And so that's just at a high level, how you might think about it. From an agentic perspective, you could use, for example, agentic AI to do things like go grab point of sale data and do an analysis of it. You could use it for looking at historical performance or price optimization, or in the world of consumer goods revenue growth management, or RGM,
mhm,
right, which we talked about, which is
mhm,
significant. So all these are potential use cases. Now, with customers, though, today I'll say that the top three areas of interest across the board have been around search, and how search and discoverability of product, right, or platform,
mhm,
right, commerce
mhm.
platform is top of mind. The second is personalization, which, as many of you probably know listening and watching, is not new, but it's changing dramatically in how it's done and how it can engage. You can use it to engage. And the third is loyalty. And loyalty, it's been a hot topic with all the generative AI excitement, but now
Mhm,
with agentic, it's even at another level, but mainly around like who owns the customer and how do I build a
mhm.
relationship with them.
Yeah. And they're things that appear to be, if we say to people, what's on your mind? What's on, aside from how do I just drive traffic to my, you know, 5,000 stores? How do I get people to come into the physical space?
Right?
They seem to be a lot of the key things people are looking at in terms of 2026 and where they're
Yeah.
investing and what they're not looking at, what questions really they need to be asking, as opposed to, yeah, we can find lots of answers today. But what might I be missing if I don't know now in the shifting landscape where I should look? So what might I be missing here, guru of all consumer packaged goods, retail, restaurants, technology?
Last week I was with one of our partners, and
Hmm.
they play in the fraud, the security space, the identity
Hmm.
intelligence, and payment actually space. In the room with us were consumer goods manufacturers, retailers, restaurant groups, and other industries too. I was most interested in those first three, but I mean. And while Agentic was interesting, most of them were like really focused on the tactics of how do I secure transactions? How do I
Hmm.
engage and know the customer and make sure that they have confidence in doing business with me? What are the tools and techniques around that? What do I do about my data? I was like, Agentic sounds good. What about your data? And everyone's like, oh my God, I'm still using Excel to do any sort of reporting. So like, I
Right.
think we have to remember, first of all, that while there's a lot of excitement, energy around agentic commerce and agentic AI, which we all should be leaning into and understanding, the run the business part is for many
Hmm.
customers and many companies is like still, it's tough unless you're a
Yeah.
digital native brand. That's one thing I would highlight. And then second, I do feel like the line of business leaders more than ever now, and the executive teams more than ever in
Hmm.
I'd say the last couple of years are really engaged in this conversation. It is no longer just an IT thing or, IT or CIO, CTOs got it. I mean, this is truly a game changer, business challenging, business disruptive potentially.
Hmm.
So better to be understanding, engaging early.
Yeah, and it almost requires, as you were just describing it, on everything that we do as a company, one does as a company, what's the impact of this? What could be the impact? And then what's the counterpoint to it? Whether it's, you said you talked about hiring, you talked about data,
Sure.
you talked about, all of these things, security, loyalty, price, all of the things you just talked about. And literally it is taking all those assets that or approaches or whatever you want to call it that a company has and saying, where does this play in that space and where could it enhance it and where is it problematic? One thing you have inspired in me in this discussion, both personally and in our organization, is people play, experiment, get to know, see what you're doing. We're going to do some primary research in the next couple of weeks, talking one on one to people, shoppers, about what they're using, how they're using, do they even know that they're using? Because I think
Right.
in some ways we don't know the questions to ask in a broader survey. There's a lot of data out there, but I think I worry that we're missing some of the deeper sociological and economic and, dare
Yeah.
I say, political implications of this. And we just want to understand how people are thinking about it, so we can then go off and do some broader work. So yeah, that's certainly framing up.
It's not that I wasn't this way before I came to Amazon 5 years ago, but I have really, bought into, and I really see the value of thinking about, a problem statement this way is and it sounds so basic, but like, what's the customer experience we want our customer to have,
Hmm.
whether it be CPG brand to a retailer, which they would call customer,
Hmm.
or, retailer to end customer. And then working back from that and saying, okay, if we know that the customer is shopping in new and different ways, in fact, most people that we know don't even know the word agentic. They just know they've got, an app. So they're shopping in new and different ways. I want my product in front of them, or I want the
Hmm.
relationship with them. Therefore, what's going to have to change in how I do business? And that conversation normally might have taken months and years. It's going to happen in weeks and months. So I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that, you know, as you're a business person for marketing, I normally would have done search engine optimization and whatnot. Like that changed like already. Like so how do I want to engage? What do I need to shift? Do I need to upskill my staff? Do I need different types of people or new tools? Like, you start thinking about all that. So you could just
Yeah.
take how do I want the customer experience or engagement to work? What do I need to do different? How do I change it to make it work? And then what are our actions to take it? You know what I mean? Like if you work backwards, instead of getting so enamored with the tools or like
Yes.
large language
Hmm.
models or,
Hmm.
I mean, I could go down the, let's focus on the customer and
Yeah.
then solve problems on their behalf.
Yeah. And that's such an important approach to anything, right? You're trying to figure out how you should lay out a planogram. That's very old world these days. But who is the customer? We were one of our retail clients just this week, and they were showing us the new innovation and some of the things they were testing and localization, all of this stuff. And so we were literally walking through the store with them, with a few people. And I said to them, okay, tell me who this person is that you're trying to attract with this. Tell me who she, he is as they walk down this aisle, and what are they doing? What are they trying to solve? And so it is exactly what you were saying. What is that? Who are they, and what's the experience? And what are they coming with? I keep pointing to my hand. What are they coming with? What knowledge do they have? And what are they
That's
trying to
right.
get done today in the physical space? Or, it's not even physical or digital, right? Because we're already all wired for all of those things, as we know.
You mentioned planograms, so I'll go there. So, like,
Yes,
we have
please.
some customers, we're global brands that we work with. So, their planogram is like here's the set for all 80 stores in this geography, which is not conducive to meeting the customer where they are and who shops the store. So like,
Mhm.
but okay, so let's work back from that. So I want to do a better job of selling more product in store. It makes the retailer more money, driving more volume, right? I'm on the brand. Okay, so I need better information to kind of dictate or say what the planogram should be by store. Okay, so now I'm worked back from that, and then the solve for that may not just be data. It could be like a traditional AI or machine or just analytic problem. It may not be generative AI or agentic. So, but taking the experience of the customer, the opportunity, and working back from that, and then solving it versus getting so enamored with the tool, the platform, the model, the whatever
Mhm.
first. Let's think about the customer and not forget
Yeah.
to put them at the center.
Yeah, well, us is the shopper in the room, in the simplest and most complicated
Right.
way.
That's
And
what
when
you
it
do.
makes your head when it
Yeah.
makes your head hurt. So yeah, so lots to think about, but it feels like, the adaptation and the willingness to discuss and getting it beyond the discussion and beyond, as you say, IT to at every part of the organization. And then all these organizations that are changing, whether there's, we could talk about retail shifts these days, even your company, thinking about who's in the house still. Big retailers who are thinking, who do we need anymore, or who should we have in the house? Brands. I mean, there's so much of that change going on, which is so interesting. All the while, the consumer is sitting there saying, "What are you guys nuts? You can't get my product on my
Right.
shelf at the price I want. Thank you very much." I'm going to tell you a little gossipy thing. I was stunned this week for public consumption. I was stunned that in walking stores with some of our CPG clients, we went into an Aldi. There were people,
Hmm.
CPG companies, where their either chief customer officer, whatever, insights analytics person had not been into an Aldi. And I go like, here I am doing my munch scream. How is that
Yeah.
possible? It's just stunning to me. Anyway,
Before
that's my
I'll tell you before we go meet with we have, let's just say, retailers, some of whom we haven't worked with in the past that we do now,
mhm,
or brands that are large brands that you just are so new to tech that they're just getting going with like cloud or whatnot. I mean,
mhm.
and our team, the first thing we do is get out in the market,
Yes, of
go to
course.
stores, not just their stores, their competitor
Yes,
stores,
yeah.
go look at the same product on shelf in different locations. Like, it instantly creates, I'd say, what we call an earn trust moment with the customer, but also like when we're with them, but we can instantly relate because most of us came out of the industry. So, it seems so 101, and I'm shocked, and it still happens to even people that I know. It'd be like, have you even been in a store of that customer, even though we're going to meet them right now? They hadn't. It's like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, so as we think about our future here and yours too, but as we discuss, I mean, I think about things that start to open up for me that I say to people, I worry about the lack of that. Not worry, but I see, people, you've been buried in your data and your bright shinies. Get out and see what's going on, because maybe it's not you think your competition looks like you, but actually if it's competition for dollars in the wallet, it may not look like you. So I think about all of that. I think about innovation, not just, in product, real innovation, not just iterative, because things are moving so fast. And because, to your point, shoppers are exposed to so much if they choose to be, and that level. And so we're finding in our work beyond our How America Shops research, our, retail innovation work, getting people to think differently by looking as you do in the market, that workshopping around what innovation really looks like and challenging the old world. This is what value or quality looks like, and you're going, you people don't have a clue. Put your shopper hat on, take your executive hat on, and and then how do you think about innovating products, services, solutions in different kinds of ways? So I'm quite excited about that.
Mhm.
I know
I
you
think innovation,
101
and
is right.
we didn't spend any time on innovation today, but
Mm,
it is back top of mind for most companies and all kinds of different forms and fashions, from formulation to
mhm.
packaging to, should we acquire versus build? I mean, like, there is a lot of interest there. and excitement, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
also, what's the customer experience in store? Should we be delivering from store? Should we, destination experience in store? There's a lot of really great conversations we're in the middle of on that, and it's definitely, I'd say, we didn't talk about that, but like probably one of the top couple of things going on in our industry right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and just last, because we always run out of time, but we'll continue the conversation as always before year end. When you think about, we've got NRF coming up, National Retail Federation, the big show, and which always sort of feels like it kicks off the year for most of us in New York City. You're very heavily engaged in that. We show up and
Yeah.
big-eyed and see what's going on. What are you thinking for that? What are the big themes? What are you expecting out of
Yeah.
that as we kick off the year?
I mean, last year, I think I might have said this on a previous podcast,
Mm.
I walked in the door and expected to see generative AI, all over. There's no question that Agentic, it might have been tear down the generative word and put Agentic up for a lot of for a lot of companies. It's certainly top of mind. The transformation and like areas we talked about earlier will be top of mind,
Mm.
around search discoverability. And new ways of doing that. I believe not only I know with our focus and others will be a big focus on showing what's real. Like, don't just talk to me about the tech, like, or the capability or the platform or the store. Like, show it to me. Like,
Yeah.
give me, because I was looking at some numbers before today, and the numbers I pulled from McKinsey were more than 80% of organizations, in our industries here, have done some sort of pilot with generative AI, but only about 95% of those have said there's anything that's material that's really
Hmm.
driven like earnings change. And so, like, that's good. So a lot of efficiency. So how do we take this capability or these capabilities and lever those up into growth and innovation? And I
Hmm.
think that will be really interesting going into earnings or the shopping season. I think there's a lot of good energy, and that should come out. And then that event, I think it will be well attended, and there'll be companies are looking for, "Don't just give me the what might be coming one day, but show me what's real now so we can go and
Yeah.
execute."
Yeah. I think that's from a consumer shopper and business standpoint. I feel like it's that innovation meets pragmatism, you know, investment meets pragmatism. Yeah, and I think we see a lot in those sort of things that we're doing. As always, I'm sure there are 27,000 other topics we did not finish. But anyway, that's enough of us. So thank you, as always. My dear, is there one parting bon mot for our audience that you say between now and December 3rd?
I said this a couple years ago at the Emerson Industry Days, and I was thinking about it when we were preparing for today, but I still think, man, what an exciting time to be in our industry. I said it at that time because it was the early days of, a lot of the new interest in generative AI, but in a lot of the new tech that was going into stores and e-commerce. But gosh, I mean, just when you think it's kind of going to get kind of on to the next thing, there's just so much energy around
Yes.
these industries right now, a lot of interest, a lot of potential for growth. And like you said, innovation, which we've got to talk about on a future episode. And I think it's just an exciting time to be in our industry.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm with you. And always in times of chaos, you start to see, people step up and say, "Oh, there's an op for us." So hopefully, all those listening see
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for all of us as we come into fourth
No
quarter and
doubt.
spooky but happy holiday season. So thank you, as always, my partner in all things crime and other things. And I look forward to seeing you very soon in the future as in person, not just through your
Can't wait.
agent, you my agent of all technology.
That's right. Hey, I always appreciate that you put these together, and I always love our conversations. And
Yeah,
what I really appreciate is you're taking, concepts and ideas and bringing them to life for the retailers that listen, the brands that listen, and for those that are out shopping. So I appreciate that.
thank you, my dear, and we will see you in the future.